Hi, this is Asim and welcome to a new episode of Khandaan Podcast. I wanted to give a few notes before we start the show. We had a few audio issues at the start, but it gets solved within 2 minutes. So if there's a bit of a difference in audio, that's why it is. We're also going to be talking about sacred games, and we will be going into spoilers. We will warn you when the spoilers start. And if you just fast forward for 10 minutes, you should be totally safe if you haven't seen the show yet. But just in case, I wanted to warn you guys so, you don't hear anything that you didn't want to hear. And the third note I wanted to give is from Amrita. Amrita wants everyone to know that Sacred Games was written by Varun Grover, Smita Singh, and Vasant Nath. And I think she calls the lady Smita Bansal, which was not correct in the episode. So again, I wanted to correct that from the start. For the rest, there are no other mistakes. It's amazing. The show is so funny. I hope you guys enjoy it, and send us an email at youpodcasting@gmail.com, and also vote for the next poll. It's a really good one. Thanks for listening, guys. Hi everybody, you're listening to the Khandaan Podcast by the You Podcast team, a bi-weekly podcast revisiting the movies of Aamir Khan, Salman Khan and Shah Rukh Khan.
Every show we pick a random year from 3 decades of collectively 300 films the Khans have done and let our listeners vote which movie we should talk about. So it's entirely up to you.
Pick a team, make a vote, take us down nostalgia lane, punish us, or make us reassess a movie we dismissed.
We love the Khans, most of us, sometimes. And we would love for you all to be part of our Khandaan, because when it comes to the Khans in Bollywood, nothing else really matters.
Hi everybody, welcome to Khandaan Podcast. We've got an awesome guest with us today. We've got McCahill. Mike, I was going through who you write for, and there's so many people. Can you just let people know where people can find you? There's Guardian, there's this and that.
I wear many hats. I think that most people will hopefully recognize me from my stuff for The Guardian, which has been my main gig for the last 6 years or so. I've been writing for them, but yes, it's the curse of the freelancer that you end up writing for about 5 or 6 different places at once. But The Guardian is the main one at the moment. Yeah.
Oh, great. And we've got our Farek Log, Amrita and Sujoy with us too.
Very ghar ki murgi feel is coming. Yeah.
We bring on a guest and we devaluate everybody else who's
don't. They're the main attraction. I mean, look, there's nothing I can say on here today that will top your conversation about Bobby Deol's nipples last time.
We'll top that. We'll definitely top that. We've got 2 Sanjus coming in this conversation.
Yeah. Well, Sujoy is taking over the singing duty this episode. So if there's any song needed, Sujoy will be singing Sheher Ki Pariyan today, probably, right?
No.
So this episode we're talking about Sanju, we're talking about Sacred Games. We're going to try to keep it spoiler free mostly, but we'll do a spoiler tag if Amrita has things to say. If she cannot control herself. And our main review is going to be Jo Jeeta Wohi Sikander, which won the poll this episode. So, shall we start with Sanju?
Yep.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
It's a massive hit. I think we're kind of a bit late. It came out previous weekend, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So it's been a week, and it's already proven to be a massive, massive hit. Mike, maybe let's start with you because you're the guest. What were your general thoughts of Sanju?
I was disappointed. I reviewed it for The Guardian, so there weren't any press screenings of it. I went to see it on the first Friday show at my local multiplex, and there was a sort of smattering of people in there, and I think people were, the people around me were broadly enjoying it while recognizing there was probably a bit too much of it and not enough of the crucial stuff. I mean, I think it is possible to do a biopic of someone who's had a very checkered career and make it more honest than Sanju is. I mean, I was thinking back to Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll, which is the Ian Jury biopic, the British musician. where you come away with a sense of, this guy is, a musical genius, a lyrical genius, and it's good that he was around, but also that he could be a very difficult character and be a very prickly character. And, thinking about even before that to Cobb, which is, the movie about Ty Cobb, the baseball player played by Tommy Lee Jones in the biopic. Again, a brilliant sports player, a crowd favourite, if you like, but also a very, at times openly racist character. But, those films weren't going for that big multiplex crowd. They weren't going for the kind of success that Sanju has had. So maybe, they could be allowed to be a bit more honest than this one was. I mean, I just feel like this film took Sanjay Dutt as a bit of a rogue, a bit of a character, and therefore someone who could be redeemed come the final reel. And maybe that says something about our need for, comeback stories. But as a 2.5 hour experience, I felt there was so much evasion and omission going on that it just became wearying by the end.
Yeah, I think it's kind of that general idea about how we treat, like, there's these two stars in Bollywood, right? There's Sanjay Dutt and Salman Khan, and both of them are kind of like treated, they're little boys that made a mistake and we should just forgive them and move on, right? We generally forgive our stars very quickly, but these two, I think they're kind of in that same mold. Amrita, I feel we almost needed to push you to watch this movie. You were not motivated at all to go see this, right?
Actually, no. Like, I knew that it would be like a really good Ranbir Kapoor performance, and I enjoy watching Ranbir on film. So I was like, maybe I'll go watch it anyway. So there were a lot of people right after the movie came out who were like talking about how it whitewashes Sanjay Dutt and everything. But I felt like I already knew that from the trailer and from knowing Hirani's work in the past. So I can't pretend that I was, I was a lamb to the slaughter, or that I didn't know what was coming. But what I didn't expect was the extent of it, or like just how bold-faced the evasions and the omissions would be. There's I think 5 minutes into the movie, I was just, my eyes were just wide open, and I was just like, well, so this is what it's going to be, because there's a scene where Sanjay finds Anushka, who Hirani must hate for some reason, because he constantly makes her wear these weird wigs. And she's supposed to be the world's best biographer, which is not even a thing, but okay, fine. But they're sitting at this coffee shop, and I swear to God, so they're sitting at a coffee shop, and Sanjay's trying to pitch this book to her and trying to tell her that she needs to take him on as a subject. And the background music is, I couldn't believe it. Like, I was basically sitting in the theater, and it was just, the kind of music that they used to have in the mid-20th century art cinema, like European art cinema, where like somebody was dying in a garret of consumption. Like, it was that kind of like violin, like plinky, plinky, plinky thing. And I was just like, what the hell? And the way like Sanjay was like pitching himself to her, it was just like, he's like the biggest underdog in India. Like, he has no friends. There's nobody that understands him. He's all alone. He's like, against the system, and the media hates him. And I was like, I remember who you are, and I remember who you were before you went to prison. Literally everybody was just bending backwards to like give you the benefit of the doubt for everything. The guy that, that melted down the rifles that he tried to get rid of, that guy got a longer sentence by the terror court than Sanjay Dutt, who actually bought it. Like, that guy, all he did was like help out a friend, and he went to prison. And I was just like, you cannot pretend that there's like nobody that understands you, and that nobody that loves you or cares about you or knows the truth, when you've literally just spent like 20 years being everybody's Baba. Like, they literally call him Baba, for the love of God, like, they infantilize this guy for like 81, so more than 30 years, right? Mm-hmm. And at the end of it, he's just like, everybody hates me, nobody loves me, nobody cares for me, because like one time somebody turned and said, Sunil Dutt was like a terrorist dad, which I'm sure that was terrible for Sunil Dutt, but also like Sunil Dutt was beloved. It doesn't matter what Sanjay did. nobody that I remember ever turned around and like blamed Sunil Dutt for it, or like said that, Sunil Dutt was a bad person. I don't think that ever happened.
And it's not like Sunil Dutt was on Twitter back in the day, right?
And also it was just really interesting to me as an Indian and as somebody who like lived through the 90s and like saw all that stuff unfold, even as a child, It was just very interesting to me to see in the acknowledgements page, like they were, they thanked Raj Thackeray, but they didn't mention Bal Thackeray, who was like the head of the Shiv Sena during that time. And everybody in India knows that it's Bal Thackeray that got Sanjay out of prison. Like everybody knows. Like Sunil Dutt tried to get his own party, the Congress, to get Sanjay out of prison. All of them said no. So he went to Bal Thackeray, who ran Bombay as his fiefdom back then, and said, and he was the MP for South Bombay at that time. And he basically said, I won't stand for re-election for the next term, allowing for the first time ever since Sunil Dutt started contesting that seat, allowing a Shiv Sena candidate to win that seat for 5 years. And he said, I won't do it if you just get my son out of prison. And then Bal Thackeray, who admired Sunil Dutt, who was like a partition refugee and was like Punjabi Hindu and all that. And he said, fine, I'll get Sanjay out. And he used all his influence and got Sanjay out. So it's just insane to me. And also the Shiv Sena is very right-wing Hindu, right? You don't get more right-wing Hindu than the Shiv Sena. So Sanjay's whole thing is his mom is Muslim, therefore everybody hated him. And I'm just there are people who go through that in India, but Sanjay Dutt is not really one of them. I don't doubt that there were people who were targeting his sisters or calling him threats or who hated Sunil Dutt for siding with his poorest constituents, but it's also a lot more nuanced than what was shown in the movie. So it was just very interesting to me what they chose to show and what they didn't. That entire, his wife, Rita Sharma, whom he treated terribly and who died of cancer, and Ria Pillai, who was his rock right through that entire period. It ended really badly, but she was by his side that entire time. And she was the one who was his moral support, not Manyata Dutt. So it's just very interesting to me to just watch it.
I didn't know a lot of the context, to be honest, because I wasn't in India. So at that time we were just following Bollywood news a little bit. So I knew a little bit. I remember the photo of, all the actors coming out in support. With the Free Sanju posters and Salman Khan and Ajay Devgan. So that image I remember. Like you, Amrita, I knew that if it's Rajkumar Hirani doing this movie, there's always going to be kind of a lightheartedness to it. And I always feel that a biopic is very much enamored with the subject. And I actually couldn't even think of any biopics that did have kind of an honest portrayal of it. I asked on Twitter, so people did kind of send me a few new names that I hadn't thought of before, like Raging Bull or Goodfellas or Behind the Candelabra. The Founder, that was the other one, and a few that Mike mentioned. But I always felt those were kind of, the stories were almost, it wasn't, I didn't necessarily feel they were biopics. Like a biopic for me is something like Ray or Mary Kom or something like Walk the Line, where and those movies do very much whitewash what Ray did or Ray Charles did or what's his name, Johnny who
Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash did, so there's a very kind of, they do kind of whitewash a lot of their sins. So that I didn't feel it was such a big issue, to be honest. But I think it's the main criticism that a lot of people have taken off. I was more concerned about the choices that the film itself made and how they made this movie. And I watched it with the Sujoy, and both Sujoy and me were squirming, right? So Sujoy, what were your kind of thoughts on Sanju?
Yeah, exactly what you said. I mean, it's kind of obvious that they were going to just brush away the more dodgy bits of Sanjay's life and probably show him as the victim of all that happened to him. And everything that happens to him, he can... they have explained it, why it happens, and who is it to blame for. My main issue is that the movie is all over the place tonally. I can't really decide. And also there are some things that they have chosen to show, which could have, sounded really good on paper, as we discussed, but it doesn't really land properly on screen, especially with the choices that they made with the casting. Paresh Rawal as Sunil, that just doesn't work for me. And that is such a pivotal character. He just plays it as a normal, average Bollywood dad, and that could have been so much better.
I absolutely agree with Sujoy.
Like, there is this one particular scene that when Ranbir or Sanju has escaped from the rehab and he's walked all the way back to New York, and he comes face to face with his dad, and he pours the drink, and then Paresh Rawal, Sunil Dutt, plays this tape of Nargis's recording, and he suddenly realizes he just gets up to give, he thinks that Nargis is still in the room and tries to give her water, and then Sanju says, just tape baj raha, it's a tape. That could have been such an emotional scene.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't work, and it's kind of, this movie is filled with such scenes that could have been so great on paper, but they just couldn't make it work, and that's why that emotional connect that I could empathize with Sanju just doesn't. Even though Ranbir's performance is so strong, even then I couldn't really empathize with Sanju. And on a movie level, this doesn't work for me.
Yeah, that could have been the juice carom scene, right? In Munawai, that's what they were going for, and it didn't land for me, unfortunately, either.
Another example is that when you that song Kar Har Maidan Fateh, when he's he puts the recording on his Walkman and just climbs up that cliff. There is no struggle. He puts on a beanie and then just runs, and you can't even see a bead of sweat on his forehead, right? Yeah. So that's the kind of analogy that this movie translates to. He gets to the top, and there is no hard work involved. I'm sure Ranbir has put on weight
for the entire journey, isn't it? That he gets up to the top. But I mean, the weird thing is he doesn't have any agency whatsoever. He's more done to than doing all the way through the film, and when you make a film so much about its central character, if he doesn't have any sort of hard choices to make, if everything is just done to him, then it just becomes very wearying to watch after all. It's not particularly funny. And I think that I agree with Sujoy about the tonal weirdness of it. And I think in part it's because it's trying to jolly up some pretty bad misbehaviour. Yeah. And so it has to sort of frame behaviour that looks to you and I like slightly shady, suspicious behaviour as a bit of a joke, a bit of a laugh, and so it finds itself sort of wobbling like that. But it's very weird. I mean, it is clearly made by someone who's very close to Sanju, so it doesn't have that kind of element of journalistic rigour. And that when it brings in, the world's greatest biographer to come and apparently do this rigorous journalistic job, it just doesn't wash, because, the film is giving him a free pass every turn.
Tonal shift is also, for example, that scene where he sleeps with his friend's girlfriend.
Yeah.
What was that?
What was that? Were we supposed to be laughing? Or good old Sanju sleeping with his best friend's girl? And even, from a point of kind of gender, I don't even know how to explain it. It felt really wrong. This girl is just visiting. He's never met her, and suddenly she knows that the guy is sleeping in the next room, and suddenly she turns into this kind of come hither vixen just because she wore a pink nightie. I did not understand that at all, and I didn't understand why it was played off as a joke. And the other thing is also why I feel the movie itself is confusing is because the marketing also is very confusing. And the example for that is that scene where Sonam burst into the bathroom and he pulls off the toilet seat and she's asking for her Mangal Sutra, and he puts the toilet seat on her head. In the movie, it's quite a sad scene. But in the trailers, it was played off as a joke. So how can the same scene be played off completely different tonally? It just feels that the movie maker didn't decide it. Even I think another example was the drunk scene of Vicky Kaushal. Also, I didn't know Vicky Kaushal was kind of a star kid, by the way. It's just something I discovered recently.
Wait, how's he a star kid?
His dad is like in the industry. He's like an action director or something like that. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, not a star kid, but he's like he's nepotism with a big N. I didn't know that. Anyway, so
it's like Ajay Devgan of this.
Yeah, Aj ka Ajay Devgan.
So sad. Nobody should be the Ajay Devgan of any generation.
So 10 years down the line, he's going to have gutkhas and Bimal Pan Masala.
Yeah. So he's having this drunk kind of scene with Sunil Dutt, and then he adds like a very kind of off-putting joke in there about sleeping and something, and it just like totally they needed to add that to lighten the mood just because they couldn't commit to what the emotion the scene should be bringing. And that I had a problem with, and then just generally marketing-wise, I just thought it was very annoying that it doesn't deal at all with why we love Sanjay, why he is such a big star, the movies he made. And that was the reason I wanted to see him, coming out of jail and Subhash Ghai making Khalnaik, and that being at least like 30 seconds of the movie, a minute of the movie, maybe Madhuri Dixit. And also even until before I saw the movie on IMDb, and I think we discussed this on a previous podcast, Boman Irani was supposed to play Sanjay Gupta, Karishma Tanna was supposed to play Madhuri, Jim Sarb was supposed to be Salman Khan, and it just felt weird that maybe this was a misdirection from the marketing team, but it just felt weird that in the movie there's no mention of any other actors at all. Except,
like you mentioned, like in other biographies, like Behind the Candelabra and Walk the Line, all of these we do get glimpses of why they are considered iconic, because they are musical geniuses, even though they are shitty human beings. In this movie, we don't get even a glimpse of why Sanjay is loved, despite all the shady, choices that he made in his life. We don't even get a glimpse of his stardom. We only get to see all the bad shit, all the bad shit stuff that has happened. We don't get to see the showbiz side at all.
But do you think that has to do with the fact that this is being made for like an Indian audience? Because all those movies that you're talking about, they're being made in either Hollywood or in Britain, which is very different than something that's being made in India. Because however, even if Sanjay said, I'm fine with you knowing everything about my life. Let's say that we buy into the marketing and we say, Sanjay said the truth and he's been very open and he's told you everything about his life. If he starts telling tales out of school about the people that he worked with and, the real life people, and they object, that becomes a much bigger issue in India than it would in the West.
Yes, he might not want to spend more time in the courts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily want to see anything scandalous. I don't want to see his affairs with actresses or whatever, or having coke with his co-stars. But I just want to see him make movies, or I don't know. It just didn't work for me. This movie didn't work for me, and it's funny because Raju Hirani's movies are very popular in China, for example, Three Idiots and stuff like that. They made like bank over there, so they do translate internationally. So I don't understand why make this movie and give no context to anybody else kind of watching it that has no understanding of who Sanjay Dutt is, because even I think people that are kind of like younger guys now, they don't even understand the popularity of Sanjay Dutt. So I just feel it was something lacking in the movie. It didn't work for me. It's my least favorite Raju Hirani movie, and beside Ranbir Kapoor, who's awesome in this movie. Just to kind of like end on a positive note on the review, how good is Ranbir Kapoor though? Like,
really good.
Like and I think I said this for Jagga Jasoos and a few other movies, Bombay Velvet even, when he brings his A game, like it's not like a fluffy rom-com thing. He just leaves everybody behind. He has no contender. It's insane to me, like how good he is compared to all of his contemporaries. He blew me away with how committed he was, and also a lot of the makeup maybe doesn't work, and I feel a lot of it was maybe the same makeup artists in Sacred Games. They had kind of the same cheek implants that they were using.
It's not just the makeup, it's the wigs. Like, the wigs are so bad.
It's the same hairdresser. It's Alim, whatever his name is. They brought the same hairdresser that used Sanjay's terrible hair back in the 80s, in the 90s.
I think Anushka's borrowed Cameron Diaz's hair from being John Malkovich, where the whole point was that Cameron Diaz was being mousy down, so she wasn't this glamorous star, but it's the same frizzy perm.
Yeah, you cannot stop Anushka's glamour, though. Even with a wig and terrible lenses, she looks amazing.
She still does, yes, that is true.
Is Anushka supposed to be a white person in this movie? Is that what they're trying to say?
I thought she was Mexican or something. I don't know.
The character's called Winnie Diaz, isn't it? Which would suggest of Latin extraction.
Wait, but that's the thing. She doesn't call herself Winnie Diaz. She calls herself Winnie Diaz.
That's right. Yes. They can't even get the pronunciation right. Yeah.
But that's Anushka doing an accent, right? She always starts super motivated with an accent, and then midway she kind of gives up. It's like every time she does that.
And the same happens with Vicky Kaushal's accent as well, though. Like, once he ages, all that accent is gone.
Ah, okay.
That's true. And also those Gujarati, those Gujarati jokes, they're like so dated. It's from like 20 years ago. Like, who even does those jokes anymore? Like, oh, the Gujarati, he has like a funny accent. He says snakes and hole.
Yeah.
Like Rajeev Hirani really needs to grow up a little bit. Like, there's like
I think that's what the audience, us as audiences of Rajeev Hirani movies, we used to like. We have grown, and his cinema hasn't. It's still very juvenile in that way.
But like people love it, though. Sorry.
Yeah, there is no point discussing that.
I feel stupid saying like Raj Kurani needs to grow up because we didn't get it, but it's like a massive hit and everybody was laughing in my theater. So maybe we're at fault.
At the end of the show in my theater, which by the way was house full on a Wednesday afternoon.
Wow.
And at the end of the show, people actually applauded. There were like people, there was a polite round of applause at the end of it. And my mother and I were just like looking at each other like, what? Like, what just happened?
I did feel because I grew up on Sanjay Dutt, and I looked for I thought he was a really cool guy, back like from movies. So I was kind of happy to see him on screen and kind of dancing. So I was like, oh yeah, Sanjay's kind of super cool when he wants to, yeah. So
he looks good for his age. He looks good for everything that he's been through. I just wish the film leading up to that point where he re-emerges was a better film.
Yeah.
But see, that's the thing, I think. Like, that's maybe why we are not the perfect audience, because this movie is really about Sanju after he goes through that Munna Bhai phase, right?
Yeah.
It's that lovable Sanju. But that's not the Sanju that we grew up on.
Yeah.
Like, we grew up on, like, the cool Sanju who was, like, very much a Khalnayak, the gangster Sanju. Like, Sadak, Naam, all of those, Vastav, up to Vastav, basically.
Yeah.
He was a lovable gangster. He was just a gangster.
Yeah.
And then after that, like the generations after Munna Bhai, they were just like, oh, like Babu, and like the whole, like the beginning of the movie where they're comparing him to Gandhi, like Bapu and Baba, like that's basically the audience that this movie is made for. And I guess, they like it.
Yeah, let's move on, I think. Oh, by the way, Sarkar is a good biopic too, now that I think about it. Also, probably whitewashes Bal Thackeray a little bit there. Sacred Games. So I finished it, Sujoy finished it, Amrita cheated, and Mike got up to episode 6, right? So let's not spoil until we all agree that we're going to spoil things. So I didn't know this Vikram is it Vikram Chadda? What's it?
Chandra.
Vikram Chadda.
The research team on this podcast is just impeccable.
You've got Anushka syndrome. You can't pronounce names correctly.
It's my accent. So I didn't even know this was such a big popular novel. Has anyone read this novel?
I
haven't. No.
Amrita, you have? Oh.
So I'll tell you. So straight up, like this is like a hugely popular novel, right? Like people, like hugely popular, as in like the little bubble in which we all live. Like people have read it and they're just like, oh my god, this is one of my favorite books. I love it. And I did not love it when it came out. Like, I thought I loved it because everybody kept telling me how much they loved it. So in my memory, I was like, oh, I must have loved it too. And then when this movie, when you sent me the link to the screeners, I actually went back and thumbed through my copy, and I remembered, actually, I didn't love it because it came out at this time where this whole Bombay crime thing was like a huge thing. Like, it was like Shantaram, there was Maximum City, which was a nonfiction book, and then there was this one. And the Bombay crime genre is not my favorite. So, I like it, but I don't love it. But secondly, there was like overkill because there's like 3 very big books about, the Bombay and why Bombay is the way it is and its underbelly and all that kind of stuff. And then also all 3 of those books, somewhere like halfway through each of those books, its editor basically said, I give up. I don't care. I can't do anything with this. It's just too much going on. So they're very self-indulgent books, especially Sacred Games. Like, I think Sacred Games came out, was the last of those 3. I think it came out in like 2006, 2007, something like that. And I really thought it needed more editing. And I hate to be that person, but it really did. Like, there were like these tangents, and there was this, and also it was a language problem because the problem with writing about India in English is that you need to establish a sense of like time and place, and it's really difficult to do that without sort of walking along the edge or sort of slipping into exoticism. And this book kind of did that for me, and that's my number one bugbear. Like, I can't stand it. So I don't remember liking it so much, but I think this works really well as an adaptation. I think the visuals work a lot more than it would like as a written down thing.
Is it a very straightforward adaptation of the book, or have they kind of changed things? Because I read both things kind of online.
Yeah. No, it has been changed. It's been updated a little bit, and they've like changed a few things. And obviously, this is just the first act. Like, they haven't. I think there's like a couple of really key characters who haven't even shown up yet. So
okay.
We'll see it. We'll see it in the next couple of series.
Okay. So Mike, maybe let's start with you again. What were your kind of thoughts on Sacred Games?
So far, 6 episodes in, I am liking it. I appreciate how ambitious it is, how sprawling it is. I think there's been some degree of conversation about the extent to which those Anurag Kashyap films are small, arty experiments that only critics appreciate, and how much potential they have to reach a wider audience. I mean, if you look at Raman Raghav or Mukkabaz from earlier this year, they're kind of tough watches. They're rocky rides. They are attempting to put all the grit and darkness that several decades worth of studio filmmaking has taken out of the cinema, trying to put that back in. And this strikes me as hitting something closer to a sweet spot between the critical and the commercial, in that, it is ambitious and it is sprawling and it is, very dense in terms of its storytelling and its characterization. But at the same time, it is very accessible. It is a cop thriller. It's a cop, the cops against robbers, if you like, and it's now available to watch in pretty much every home on the planet, or at least every home that has a Netflix connection. So it may well end up being, Kashyap's biggest commercial success, and I think by and large, I think it is kind of deserved. I think it has the strongest opening episode of anything that I've seen on TV this year. It has everything that you kind of want from a first episode of a TV show, in that it creates this world and pulls you into it. And I think it understands hooks, narrative hooks, in a way that a lot of TV before hasn't. I mean, I think it's learned from things like Breaking Bad in putting something towards the end of every episode that nails you to the couch and makes you want to watch another episode. It's very smart in the way that it does that. And it has these 2 really strong central performances. So, by the end of the first one, I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. I think after that, it sort of hits a groove. It is kind of generic. It is, it's not a radically different narrative in any way. It is, the heroic but conflicted cop and the mastermind who sort of pulls the strings and drags him into his world. But the writing is very strong. The direction is really strong, I think. And like I say, you do have these 2 very good central performances that pull you in.
Because he's definitely going for your love, Mike. Like this show, like Anurag Kashyap at least. Like he wants your love. He doesn't want my love. Like that's what he's been trying for. Like
He personally drove round to my flat and handed over the episode wrapped up with a big box of chocolates. Of course.
So I saw like a little making of thing in which they said that Motwane basically directed all the present day scenes with Saif and left Kashyap to do the flashback scenes with Nawaz. Yeah. And I thought that was like brilliant, you know, like because they really do run on two parallel tracks. They're like very different stories, and they're set in like very different time periods and like with people. And I think that was like a really good decision on their part.
But I also saw that, and even if I hadn't seen that or heard that, I think it's very clear that Anurag Kashyap directed the Nawazuddin scenes, like all of that portions. There's a very different style to it. The thing is with Anurag, I've always felt his movies are very kind of gritty and real, but they miss that. They miss beauty. Like there's not one shot of Anurag's movies that I can think. Oh, you know that Twitter thread, one shot a movie or something, where they pick out beautiful shots. I don't think Anurag has that many, but Vikram Motwani does, and I think. Yeah. You can clearly see that the way the Radhika Apte and Saif Ali Khan scenes are shot, they are vastly more beautiful to look at than the ones that Anurag does. There are moments that are amazing too in Anurag's ones, but there is a different directorial tone and kind of aesthetic choices that they both make, although it does all come together as a whole. But again, like I do feel Anurag has this kind of, he forces this kind of, I want to be so real. Like, how many doggy style scenes of Nawazuddin should I see? Like, before I'm like, dude, okay, so I get it. Like,
there are other positions available.
There are, and like, I don't know how I feel about this. Like, like I was like, initially I was like, wow, cool, sacred games and stuff. I need to tell my dad, watch this stuff. And then like after the 30 doggy style scene, I was like, okay, maybe if he finds it himself, it's fine. I don't want to take responsibility for recommending him watching this with my mom, But I think that's a clear choice. I mean, I'm making fun of it, but I think it's good for Indian content to not be family friendly necessarily, right? But it does kind of feel a bit odd. Sujoy, what did you think of Sacred Games?
I'm quite impressed by the production quality that they've managed to, put into it. It's almost very, very cinematic. It's almost more cinematic than most of Anurag's works before, and I'm really happy for him that this has worked out. I'm happy that a major name in Bollywood, even though we don't consider him as one of the Khans on our podcast, Saif Ali Khan has, Saif Ali Khan is in this project, and I think that works wonders for this both for Netflix and for Phantom. And I think this should, pave the way for greater things to come out of India when we are one of the great, biggest content makers in the world. So, optimistic about the future, I guess. But Sacred Games on itself, it's kind of, yes, it is enjoyable, and it is. They have mastered the art of creating content for streaming where you don't have a limit of whether it has to be a 40-minute or can be 45 minutes, can be 52 minutes, any episode. But they have also mastered the art of, making you want more and sit down and keep watching. And I wanted this series made me wonder what Bombay Velvet could have been if it was an ended series.
Yeah.
I think that is the case. The 8 hours of TV gives you the time and the space to put that grit and put that darkness back in a way that the movies have always found quite, problematic. Like I say, that those films are sort of rocky rides. They're quite erratic and often tonally. And I think now, having 8 hours to work with, it gives them time to smooth that process and refine that process. And I think that's what's going on here. It's actually a much easier watch for that reason.
Yeah. Actually, Mike, so that was my question. Did you watch this in Hindi with subtitles, or was it like a English dubbed version?
So I watched it all in Hindi with subtitles, yeah. So which is presumably the version that most viewers in the UK and possibly the US will watch, I would have thought.
Okay. Because somebody was saying that there's like an English dub version, and that's the default setting in the UK and the US.
It's not. It's not for me, at least. But I think what happened. So this is our friend Asim Chopra that kind of raised this point. I think because the actor was kind of saying that I've done this dub for the show, the one that did the voice, which I find weird. Why didn't they just get Saif Ali Khan to dub his own voice if they're doing a dub? I don't understand.
Problems.
But still, get a phone, Skype it. I don't think that's a good enough reason. But yeah, and he was kind of letting the world know that he's doing the dub. And I don't know if people just seem to assume that it's going to be a forced dub on everybody. But I don't think that's the case. If your settings are right on Netflix, I watched the initial 4 episodes on my media screeners, and then the last I just watched on the Netflix app, and it automatically switched to Hindi and with subtitles, so there was no issue whatsoever for me.
Okay. Because that would be like a really weird choice if like the default was like English.
I know they do that for certain shows, like a few Spanish shows that I have on Netflix. They just automatically dub it. So I don't know. And also I don't know if this would be successful. Did they redub Narcos? Because Narcos is what they're aiming for, right? Like the gold standard. Yeah, the shadow of Narcos looms large on Sacred Games. But my version of Narcos was never dubbed. So maybe there's more Spanish speakers. I don't know. If that's the reason or how they kind of thought about it. There was also a few people that raised the point that they feel that Netflix is not pushing this enough as they do with something like Glow or Orange is the New Black. How do you guys feel about the marketing of the show?
Well, I've seen a lot, certainly in the UK press, the last couple of days, about the degree to which, this is a new show and it's challenging and it's ambitious. And, I think that there's been a fair bit of coverage, certainly in the UK. I think people are aware of it. But as always with Netflix, it's a matter of people finding it for themselves, I think.
Yeah, because it wasn't on my featured shows when I kind of logged into
Okay.
So normally you have the first featured show, and mine was still the kissing booth or something stupid like that.
But it's all done with algorithms, isn't it? So it depends on what you've been watching. If you've been watching Adam Sandler films, you have no one to blame but yourself.
I have been watching a lot.
I think in India they have really pushed it. Like there have been billboards everywhere. Like I've seen some feed on YouTube and on Twitter as well. It's been advertised and marketed really aggressively.
Yeah. So Netflix also doesn't publish their viewership numbers or how popular a show is. So I'm also wondering what their metrics for success is, because I didn't know, and I think we can start talking about spoilers a little bit if we want now. So if you haven't seen it, maybe skip ahead a little bit. So I didn't know this was just a part of the story, because I was at episode 5 or something, and they were at day 15, and I was like, wait, how are they going to wrap up 15 days in one show? And then I was like, wait, we're done? And so I still actually don't know what happened, and I'm not exactly 100% sure what he finds in the bunker. So I went back to Wikipedia to figure out if I could find like a summary, but there's no summary there. So I'll have to ask Amrita offline exactly what happened and what we discovered in the bunker. But
if we are speaking a bit of spoilers, then I'll just say like episode 6, like there are really great performances in this show. Saif is great. Nawaz is obviously very, very good. Then there are other supporting characters, but I think episode 6 completely belongs to the actor who plays Constable Katikar, Jitendra Joshi. He is excellent. It's such a breakthrough performance in that episode. I just wanted to mention that. He's really, really good.
Yeah, and his what happens to him is actually quite touching too. It really, that's probably one of the scenes that really got to me.
Yeah, the whole arc comes together in that particular episode about his story, and it's just amazing. Like you get some sort of foreshadowing before, like he really wanted to attend that actress's performance, and he takes his family, etc., and that happens. That happens. Yeah.
But the whole series is full of those terrific character actors who presumably knew that they were never going to play the action hero or the love interest or the clown, and so have been waiting around for a good meaty role like this that they can get their teeth stuck into. And it's like they've been waiting for someone like Kashyap to come through and hand them a script with a part that they can really get stuck into. And from top to bottom, it's full of those kind of interesting character actors, I think.
Radhika Apte is also amazing in it. And she's so good in everything. Like
I think she needs to get out of her groove a little bit, because she's beginning to repeat herself a little bit.
Right.
Because I saw this right after I saw Lust Stories.
Right.
And it was that same kind of sort of vulnerable character who's trying to push through ahead and is very conscious of gender battles and everything, and it's that same kind of thing that's just sort of coming and becoming a groove.
Yeah, I think it's also her looks. Her looks are very similar in every movie, I feel. She kind of looks the same every time, so and if she's also playing the same character, but I think she is amazing though. Until maybe next week she says that Pakistan sucks or something, and then I might change my opinions about it.
2018.
It still hurts, Swara. It still hurts.
Something I wanted to mention with the media screeners that we got, and that was I think after episode 4 or 5, the VFX weren't complete. So there are scenes when they are just staring at white screens, and they are supposed to be edited footage into that, and the characters of Radhika Apte and her tech team sort of realize that it's Luke Kenny, Malcolm, whoever is on that.
Yeah!
And it's all white screens, and they're reacting to it, and it's really funny because there's nothing on the screen, and they're reacting they've discovered enhance and zoom and all that shit.
Oh,
That's acting.
Yeah.
Can I just say, I did not recognize Luke Kenny at all.
Me neither. He needs to carry a keyboard in front of him at all times, otherwise I cannot recognize the guy. But good turn for him, right? It's a pretty good character he's playing.
Yeah, very ice cold.
Can I ask this is a question about the Cuckoo character.
Okay.
Is this straight male hysteria about this reveal of that she's a transgender? Because I don't know how that worked. I couldn't understand it. They were having sex the whole time, right? And he didn't know she was transgender? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, but they're always having doggy-style sex, so maybe things could be... I mean, I don't want to get into the anatomy of it, but...
I didn't understand, because it's a big pivotal point, right?
They are intimate before that big reveal, but in such a way as maybe... Or maybe, I mean, it may well be that the Nawaz character realizes and doesn't care. I think that because when she has her big breakdown in the dressing room, he is completely sanguine about it. He doesn't sort of freak out. He doesn't, he says, I love you for who you are. And I think actually that's one of the more progressive aspects of the whole series, that it can take a character who is a fairly marginalized character generally, and bring her into the limelight and do something interesting and sympathetic with that. And it's a really good performance as well, I think.
Yeah, I mean, why I'm kind of bringing the point up, because it's a pivotal point in Nawaz's arc.
Yeah.
And it's again, I didn't understand what was happening, because
I think what happens is Cuckoo believes that Nawaz doesn't know, but because the word spreads and Paritosh Bhai knows and people know that Cuckoo has something fishy, and
but then she's also clearly going to the male bathroom, just before the reveal. So it was a bit confusing to me exactly what happened, because she's quite cavalier about who she is. but then she's also shamed to the point that she commits suicide. So I was like unclear about what exactly happened there.
I think the scene in the bathroom is a revelation to us. The scene in the dressing room afterwards is a revelation to him, but it may well be the case that he knew already and he was perfectly fine with it. And the tragedy of her suicide is the fact that actually that she was surrounded by people who were completely fine with who she was, but the pressure came down on her and she felt she had to do something tragic like that.
Yeah, I think the narration goes something like the moment she realizes that everybody knew what she was, her magic was gone. Because until that point, she is the lucky mascot to everything that happens in Gaitonde's life.
Yeah.
But she believes that once everybody knew about it, her magic was gone. So she had nothing more to contribute, and she was only going to bring bad luck.
She is unknowable up until the point where people know her.
Yeah, very, very strong performance, I must say. I didn't know this actress before, so I was like, thanks for that explanation. What happens at the end? Can I just ask you, also, because I'm quite confused with it.
I thought it was pretty obvious that he discovered it was a nuclear bunker and Trivedi was the only one going to survive. And there was food and water everywhere. In 25 days, there was going to be some sort of a nuclear blast in Bombay.
Who's the corpse?
It's not a corpse. He's just... That's Trivedi, the third...
Oh, it is Trivedi?
Yeah. He's just tied up.
Oh, okay. Okay, so he's been tied up for 15 days there.
So far, yeah.
Okay. See, I was confused.
Come back for series 2.
Yeah. No, I thought they would.
Everything will be explained.
Yeah, no, I thought they were going to go for the whole story there. So I was like, okay, we still have 15 days, which is good. I'm happy. I just hope this is not it doesn't become kind of a Jagda Jasoos kind of thing where, Nawaz is involved and it's going to be awesome and then we don't get it. I want to see that's why I'm wondering what the metrics of success for Netflix is going to be,
unless it's cancelled, it's going to happen.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, there's going to be 2 more series, right? I think it's in 3 parts.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I remember Seth saying.
Oh, okay, good. That's good.
Also, I really enjoyed, so one of the things that they changed about this series is that, so in the book, Sartaj is supposed to be a sort of world-weary man in his 40s who's sort of tall and sort of dapper. And what they did with Seth is Seth is already quite dapper and in his late 40s. So what they basically did was, I really enjoyed that one scene in the beginning where Parulkar is dissing Sartaj to Anjali, and he says something like, "Oh, he's a low performing officer, and his wife left him, and he's put on a lot of weight." And it's so perfect, the little auntiness that comes through when he's doing it, and it's so perfect for that place and for that sort of surrounding. It's perfect, and Seth really embraced it. He looks like that, like a very bureaucratic sort of. I buy the fact that he's a low level inspector. For the Mumbai police. I get it. He sells it.
And I think he did put on weight actually for the role. So it's more commitment than we've seen from Saif Ali Khan in a while, which I'm happy about. I remember the pasta aioli you were making overcooked spaghetti.
I still maintain that he made chef just so that he could have a little vacation to Kerala and go out for a while. This is, but you know what, Seth, this is actually his wheelhouse, the whole Netflix thing. I can see how he would also, Seth is a snob, right? Come on, he's married to Kareena Kapoor. How can he not be a snob? So you can just imagine him saying yeah, but it's not television, it's Netflix. I absolutely think that he has a sense of self-worth that's very tied to the way this thing is being made. And I'm actually, I hope there'll be more people that do things like this, if this really succeeds, and I think it will, because people have been really complimentary about it. And I just want to shout out the writers, which is Varun Grover and Smita Bansal, so Joy, I'll show you a picture of Smita Bansal. She used to act in all these Saas Bahu series and stuff. I had no idea, she was writing things on the side, but she's really great. The episodes that she wrote.
I recognize her. She was in a lot of Ekta Kapoor serials as well.
And who knew, And I can't remember the name of the third person, which shame on me. And also the editor is Aarti Bajaj, who's Anurag Kashyap's ex-wife. And, she's been the editor of quite a lot of his films. And she's done a bang-up job, I think. I can't remember who did the cinematography, but yeah.
No, it's definitely good. I hope this works out for them and they can kind of build this and do more of these, which I just hope the next novel is not a Chetan Bhagat novel or something like that. Yeah. Because that kind of scares me whenever they're making a movie about something.
No, the next one is going to be Midnight's Children.
Midnight's Children, yes, I read that, yeah.
Oh, who's involved in that?
I don't know.
There's no cast announcement or anything like that?
Yeah. Okay. I think they're writing the script or something for it.
Okay, good. So everybody likes pretty much Sacred Games, right? I think it's a recommend from everybody.
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Recommend from us to you, but I'm not recommended to anybody's parents or anything like that. It's not family viewing.
Too much doggy.
Yeah, way too much doggy. Oh my God.
Parents might surprise you. The other day, my mother came up to me and told me she'd seen a very nice movie and she thought I should see it. And I asked her what it was, and she said it's called Basic Instinct. So, things happen.
Wow.
But I mean, that can happen when you reach a certain age, but when they recommend it, they're like, you watch it in your own room, but let's not watch it together. So we're not there yet, Okay. So let's get started on our main review. Jo Jeeta Wohi Sikander.
Woo!
Sujoy, you gotta go first. I mean, you've been so excited, and I honestly think this is what you kind of put this movie forward, even though it was listener's choice, and we did get a few people asking this, but Sujoy was the main guy pushing for this one. So, and then I want to ask Mike, because Mike has actually never seen this movie, so it's going to be interesting. So, Sujoy, how many... कितनी बार देखी है जो जीता सिकंदर? How many times have you seen this movie?
I think at least 5-6 बार तो देखी. I've seen it at least 5-6 times. It's like it's just seeped in nostalgia, It's the movie that I grew up with. And revisiting it last night, it was like, has my memory kind of made it a greater movie than it actually is? And it's not. It's just as great on its like 6th or 7th or 8th watch as it was the first time. I can still vividly remember how it was. I still hum all the songs. And I guess it comes back to that soundtrack being so bloody awesome. And, the music just works every single time. All the songs, all the bloody songs. And Aamir Khan is an asshole, which he plays great in this movie. Everybody's great. Dipak Tijori is great. Devin Bhojani is great. Pooja Bedi is great. Ayesha Jhulka is great. Khulbhushan Kharbanda is great. I really fucking love this movie. If it was not that obvious.
Mike, man, first time coming to this movie, had you heard of Jo Jeeta Wohi Sikander? Because it does have this kind of cult status, like people
I had heard nothing about it whatsoever, but that's in part because, I came late to Bollywood. I pretty much, came to Bollywood around the millennium. So anything pre that, I've been running around for the last few years trying to catch up with stuff and trying to fill in holes in my knowledge or whatever. So, I only know, I was introduced to Aamir as the fully fledged megastar of Lagan. I know him as Tom Hanks with muscles. So to see him making his bones, making his reputation in the early stages of his career was kind of an eye opener for me. I don't think it's not an unpredictable film, shall we say? I think you could probably have stopped it about 15 minutes in and asked me what's going to happen, and I would have told you it's quite likely that the sort of ragtag school kids are going to band together and overcome the black-clad rival cycling team, who are basically the Hitler Youth of the Indian public schools. I can imagine
the Cobra Kai.
Yes, yeah. I think that's how it's turned out. And it also has that sort of thing that I see in a lot of 80s and 90s Western teen movies, which is a certain faddishness. So there's a scene where they're sitting around the the diner, and there's a kid outside doing bunny hops on his BMX bike to the sound of Loverboy by Billy Ocean, which is a song that I hadn't heard for about 30 years. I thought rather charming, but it was probably dated in '92, 25 years old. But I mean, this is I am not dismissing it by any means. It has tremendous charm and it has tremendous spirit. The cycling scenes are really exciting. I mean, I'm sitting here today, the first day of the Tour de France, and if there's a stage of the Tour de France where someone gets knocked off their bike over a cliff, comes back, has a fist fight, and still finishes in the top three, it will rate amongst the three greatest stages of the Tour de France ever staged. Yeah. So the cycling's really good. The songs are terrific, and I've had the songs in my head all week.
Yeah.
And also, it has real charm as kind of a hangout movie. The thing that it reminded me of more than anything else is that film Breaking Away, which is a little American movie from the late 70s, which I think, like this, didn't find a huge audience at the time, but has become sort of embraced as a little cult movie, since it came out on VHS and then DVD and now on streaming. And Breaking Away is another film about teenagers and bicycles, and it's all about what it is to grow up in a small town where you don't have much going for you, but you can get on your bike and you can go for a ride, and it gives you a kind of mobility that you wouldn't ordinarily have. And I think it has that feel for small town life. I mean, the first 30 to 45 minutes of this film is just setting up this location and where the kids go, with the schools they go to and also the places they go to hang out. And it's a film that really understands what it is to be young and have all that time on your hand, because, in later life, you won't have as much time to hang with your friends as you do in your teens. And it understands that. And there's a real charm about it for that.
I think this was Aamir's third or fourth film. I mean, it came out like 3-4 years after his debut, so he was this, and we wanted to pick kind of a young Aamir movie because we hadn't done an Aamir movie yet, because I'm the only big Aamir fan in the world, apparently. Right, Amrita?
Fake news. Like, even Asim, the greatest Aamir fan, is not that big an Aamir
fan. So, but people do love this movie, and even last year it's been 25 years, so they did kind of a reunion, and there's like a big interview with all of the cast coming together, and everybody looks older and worse, and time has ravaged everybody. But it was kind of cool, and it was also kind of a very trend-setting movie at that time. Like young people in this. I don't think there's ever been a Bollywood movie made in this way. And when rewatching it, it actually reminded me more than anything of a Student of the Year, especially with the bicycle racing and stuff like that. But obviously through the lens of Karan Johar, which is a lot of ass cracks in there and six packs and deep V's. Amrita.
I cannot believe you just compared Jo Jeeta Wohi Sikander to Student of the Year. Like, लानत है, डूब मरो.
Why? It's just like there's like a cycle race. It's like
one of the biggest charms of this movie. Like, I haven't seen this movie since it came out, right? Like, I saw it then, and back then I was like super obsessed with it. Like, I remember because I was when did this movie come out?
92. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was a kid, and I remember watching it, and I just thinking, like, this is like really young and is like really fresh, and the way that the four of them, like Aamir and Ayesha Jhulka and their friends like Devin Bujani and like the other guy, like, the way they used to like cut classes and they would like hang out together and like, sneak cigarettes and stuff. When like years later, when I was in high school, that's what kind of like, we weren't smoking cigarettes because none of us were smokers, but we were doing things like that. That was still very true to our experience. Like, the cutting classes, like running off, doing stuff. If my mother's listening to this, I'm just making things up. But
I figured that out when you said I wasn't smoking. Like aunties in the next room, I think.
But it's like, it's very they're actual kids, which which is why I was laughing when Mike said it was a bit Hitler Youth of the other school, because those guys look like they were all in their 20s. Like, what the hell was up with that? Like, these guys were all like fresh faced and innocent, and they're going cycling in the countryside, and those guys are like greasing their hair and like putting like axe all over their face. And wearing those snazzy outfits that says like Rajput. I
told you, very Hitler Youth. Very Hitler Youth.
It really is. Like, I think Mansoor Ali Khan like basically just knows like one college, and that's Rajput College, and he's like, that is what everything will be called, Rajput. But it's very like the training montages were like they're very intense. It's almost like they're in like training for the militia or some kind, like they're all like really like stiff-faced and like going at it to like kill somebody, and it's just a cycle race. I'm just like, why are you all so serious? But anyway, the music, as Sujoy was saying, like, I hadn't listened to the soundtrack in a very long time, and the moment the song started playing, it was like I was 10 years old and I was back in summer of '92, listening to this cassette. It was cassettes back then, and it was just on repeat, in the stereo deck. Like, we had a deck, like, that's how old this is. And I used to just listen to that the whole time. It is such a soundtrack for the year. It is just beautiful. And the songs stand up. Like, they haven't aged badly at all. And the story is still kind of cute, I think.
It's nuts, like, how big of an anthem Sheher Ki Ladkiyan was. Like I remember, like, it was like Survivor or something from Destiny's Child. It was like massive, and it was like, I remember like girls were singing this, and I think really Ayesha Jhulka was kind of like people were really happy with her because she's kind of dressed like Elaine in Seinfeld. Like, there are a lot of like oversized shirts and waistcoats, and like even like hair is the same.
It's a grown-up's idea of what teenagers wear, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think she just spoke to a lot of girls at that time where they're not the Pooja Bedis, and it was kind of like, and she was confident, she was a good person, and it was kind of a very strong character she was playing. I thought she did really well. Yeah.
And of course, like, the movie just reinforces that every good Desi boy just wants a mummy to like take care of him. Like, that's what he's really looking for. The thing that did change for me in this viewing, like, so in my memory, the Pooja Bedi character is a total bitch, right? Yeah. And then I saw this one and I was like, well, she's not that, she's not that much of a bitch. Like, she was lied to, and he sort of tried to convince her that he was like this rich, and, like really successful kid. And then turns out like, he literally comes out to her, like, she discovers him while he's playing a beggar. It was like, I don't remember that part.
Yeah, I didn't remember that either.
Yeah. And, she didn't want that. She wanted greasy-haired Dipak Tijori, who's like putting brill cream in his hair.
I do love how Pooja Bedi just like, she burns bridges with like whoever was her ex. She needs revenge. It's Dipak Tijori did something, I need revenge. Aamir did something, I need revenge. And it's all
just
like,
let it go. Just let it go.
And it's all like coffee based revenge. There's like coffee involved in every revenge.
Also, like, until I saw that interview, the reunion interview, I always wondered what happened to that guy that played Ratan, Aamir's brother.
Yeah,
so apparently that was his only film. Like, he never came in anything else.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it is interesting as a sort of lesson in stardom, in that, I came to this not having seen it before. I think if I didn't even know who Aamir Khan was, and you asked me which of those two brothers is going to go on to be a major international megastar, I would point to Aamir every 10 times out of 10. Yeah. I mean, Mehmet is not a bad actor. He turns up, he says his lines, he hits his cues or whatever, but he doesn't have that X factor that Aamir does. And I think it's something to do with his watchfulness. I think there's something about the way Aamir uses his eyes, whether he was conscious of it at the time, I don't know, but it connects with the way he uses his eyes on screen today. He's a very watchful presence, and he spends the first sort of hour of this movie watching this world getting set up in front of him, and he then picks the right moment to make his move in life, as in the cycling race. And it's about that watchful quality. You're watching him watching the world, and you're watching the world through his eyes in some way, and it's fascinating.
Yeah. Amrita's still not convinced about Aamir here.
No, like he's a good actor. Like I have no problems with Aamir as long as he's on screen. It's just when he's off screen. Like in that reunion interview, and I was telling this to Sujoy and Asim, right? So it's like the worst fucking reunion interview that's ever been staged, because it's literally a bunch of nobodies and then Aamir. Yeah. And all the nobodies are like, Aamir is so special. Oh, we love Aamir. Even back then, we thought Aamir was the best. Oh, haha, Aamir, I remember everything. You were so beautiful. You were so wonderful. You were so good. And I was like, yeah, great. Like, this sounds like a fascinating interview. And then Farah Khan comes out. And Farah Khan is a live wire.
I love Farah.
I know. So she comes in and she's immediately setting fire to everybody. She's like, she's like, you guys, like, you didn't know what you were doing. You just put me in there because you were at your wit's end. She she doesn't call out Saroj Khan, but she kind of tells the story. Like everyone knows the story. Like Farah got her start as a choreographer because Saroj Khan didn't show up. And she sort of alludes to it, which is like a really controversial topic. Like she talks about how like Pooja Bedi's dress like flew up above her head, and she's like, I remember the underwear you were wearing. You're wearing a red thong, and she's completely changed the chemistry of that stage. And then Aamir is like, come on, yeah, don't be so mean. And I'm just like, why are you like this? Like, literally, like, why are you like this? Why are you always like the end of fun? Like, you just suck everything good out of everything all the time.
Okay, Amrita, be nice. Amrita, be nice.
You know that song from Amar Akbar Anthony, Tayyib Ali, Pyar Ka Dushman? Like, one day I'm going to gather a mob, go outside Aamir's house and start singing Aamir Mamu, Fun Ka Dushman, Hai Hai.
You have to let it go. You have to let these things go, I tell you.
This is on...
Pooja Bedi when it comes
to exactly.
It's just awful.
I love this trivia on IMDb where it says Farah Khan was really having a difficult time to make Pooja Bedi dance in the song Pehla Nasha. Finally, she decided to get a studio fan and make Pooja stand on a car and blow her dress up, which can be seen in the song. This really explains the approach to how Farah deals with female characters. There is no better illustration than this.
I would also I didn't see the entire thing because I just couldn't stand it after a while, because it is like everybody was just like Amen, and I just couldn't stand it. But I would like to say, like, the part that I saw like half of it. Khulbhushan Kharbanda gave this little thing where he was like talking about how much he wanted to be there, and he was the only cast member that couldn't make it. And the only person that I saw him give like a personal anecdote about was Farah Khan, because he was like Nasir Hussain and he were in a car and they saw Farah dance somewhere wearing like a pink frock, and apparently like she really stood out to them. And I was like, yeah, because she's the only person with a personality up on that stage, because everybody was like, I love you, Aamir, I love you.
But I think it's also a case of success, right? She's the only one that has kind of a semblance of success on that stage, so she does have the kind of card. Obviously, it's also her personality, but obviously nobody else has really made anything of their lives or careers after Aamir, and Aamir is just like a massive actor, I did like Imran Khan showing up. Sorry, we're not talking about the movie anymore. We decided to speak about this reunion interview, but yeah.
Yeah, no, can I just say, why was Imran Khan on that stage? Like, he was literally there for that one scene in that one song, and then Rajeev Masand is like, so Imran, what are your memories of making this movie? And he's like,
my ass got exposed.
It was like, I was there with my Mansoor Mamu and my Aamir Mamu and my mommy. And it was very nice. It was like being on a picnic with my family. And I was like, this is why people hate Star Kids, because you are just, I cannot believe they invited Imran Khan. Like, I like Imran Khan. He doesn't even offend me, but like things like this, I'm just like, why? Why is he there? Anyway.
So many grudges. So many.
Sometimes I just say Aamir, like I whisper Aamir, and I'll have a Amrita rant for 20 minutes.
Right. I will say this. I will say this. I think it is, going back to the movie, it is one of those roles that would make a star out of pretty much anyone. In that he is basically playing some kind of Ferris Bueller style master of the universe for the first half, the coolest kid on the planet, and then eventually he sort of grows up and learns, life lessons and things like that. So it is one of those things that could have made anyone. If you'd swap those two actors around, we may have ended up in a situation where Mamik is now one of the biggest actors on the planet, and no one's heard of Aamir Khan. Now, that would be a strange thing. But
that would be really weird.
It's some sort of bizarro world where that is the case. But I think it is one of those sort of what is obviously a star-making role, I would have thought.
Yeah, but Mamik has the hair against him, so I don't know if that would have worked.
That is true. Not good hair.
Kind of just wanted to think about this movie, these schools, because these are apparently the top schools. And are they like based on some real schools or something like that?
So I've got this question, Amrita, if you can verify with me, okay? So they begin the movie saying these are all schools in Dehradun, okay?
Yeah.
And then the bike race happens in Kodaikanal. How the fuck is that happening? Like, so for context, Dehradun is like way up North India. Kodaikanal is like South India. Like, I don't know how many miles separates these two cities.
Imagine a school in Berlin and then a school in Naples.
Okay. You just get on your bike. You get on your bike and ride.
It's a really long bike race.
If you fold the map of India in half, you'll find the two of them can touch.
Well, they had the Tour de France in Yorkshire, so why can't this be a thing?
It's it's not. I don't think it's based on a real school, Asim. But what it is in like places like Kodai and in Dehradun, and I think maybe no. I think Aamir was educated in Bombay, so no. But in places like those, there are these residential schools. Most of them were sort of started during the Raj, and they're basically these boarding schools. They're very high class, and therefore like upper class kids. Mm-hmm. And like kids there speak English more than they speak anything else, and they usually come from wealthy families. And then there probably are local schools where the kids can't afford to go to these schools and that's for like the local inhabitants. So there must be yeah, exactly, for the pajama chop people. And it's very I don't know, maybe there are I would imagine there are some kind of politics, like class politics involved in places like that. I don't know, but yeah.
I think the movie did a really good job of kind of explaining those class differences, though. But what I was going to say, like, for such elite schools, they make the worst banners ever. Did anybody read the banners? It's like, I had one, it was Shaker Ace the Race, and they used this one 3 times at least.
So, there's this fun trivia, right? Because of budget restrictions, the race that happens in the beginning where Shaker wins and the one in the end, that was shot together.
Yeah, I thought that was quite. That was quite clear.
Okay, silly me for not realizing that.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt your point, but go ahead. That seemed totally like it happened one after the other.
Those signs again.
Right, yeah, but still, I'm just saying about the quality of the signs, like for an elite school.
I think this was before, like, word art came out.
Yeah. I also did feel bad for Mamik, where this guy has been like training for this for like 5 years, every year, day in, day out. Yeah. And Aamir does it like in 3 weeks. Like,
literally wakes up one day and it's like, I'm going to do it this year.
Yeah, this
like,
is like when you flip Sultan and Dangal upside down, right? Like, Aamir trains for like a year to do Dangal and he's like buff for 3 seconds. Salman puts on a mustache,
But let's be real. Like the only reason Aamir won was because of that Italian bike, and Ratan shouted Top Gear.
Right. Yeah.
Like there is no way he would have won without the Top Gear.
There's a British comic strip called Billy's Boots about a struggling young footballer who inherits a magical enchanted pair of football boots, and he puts them on. Obviously, scores 5 goals in every game. This is the cycling world's equivalent to Billy Boots. It's that magical golden bike that leads Aamir to victory with no training whatsoever. He just gets on and he wins the race.
Even after being, obstructed by the goons of Rajput.
Yeah, knocked off a cliff by the Hitler Youth.
You know what struck me, watching this movie? It's that you could never come up with, like, a cast like this or a movie like this today. Like, it would be Student of the Year, basically. Like, everybody dressed like a supermodel. Yeah. Everybody with, like, 6-pack abs. Like, the stories about, like, how, poor Aamir can't afford to go to Italy for his birthday, but like, everybody else has their birthdays in like Spain, and like the pain of it is like killing him, and like that would be the kind of stuff that's happening. And everybody would be so polished, and everybody would have like the makeup perfect, and nobody would look like. I don't think you can even find people that look like that anymore. Yeah. Like if you put out a casting call and you said, I want like a gaon ki gori that looks like Ayesha Jhulka to come and like play a small town girl. Like even the small town girls that want to act, like they don't look like that. They look
like Kim Kardashian. No, there is an innocence about it. I mean, that struck me, that it is very innocent, and I think that's why people have taken this film. I assume that's why people have taken this film to their heart. That it is. There's no cynicism about it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember like when Rockstar. Do you remember Rockstar, the Ranbir Kapoor movie? And yes. When that came out, they cast.
Nargis.
Wait, is it Rockstar? No, it's not Rockstar. Sorry, I get my Imtiaz Ali movies mixed up. The one before that, Love Aajkal with Saif.
Giselle Monteiro, the Brazilian.
Yeah. So model. The reason why they got that girl from Brazil is because they basically ran screen tests all over India trying to find like an innocent-looking girl who could play somebody who was like born in the 1930s or whatever. And they just couldn't. Like they tried and they tried and they tried, and they auditioned all the girls they could find in every small town in India, and all of them looked like they just walked out of an academy of some kind. And so finally they went to Brazil and like found Giselle and brought her over to play a Punjaban. Like it's just the funniest thing.
Which is the thing that's known about Brazil. Like everybody looks like a Punjaban there, right?
That's what the Punjabis say.
Can we talk a little bit about the music? Because this is an amazing soundtrack. It blew me away.
Is this where Sujoy is going to start singing?
Yes, this is, I'm setting him up basically now.
Okay.
He's already moving in slow motion. Yeah, Pehla Nasha was amazing, and I'd forgotten that the setup of Pehla Nasha is exactly the same setup for Kuch Kuch Hota Hai.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, without the crying.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also funny that the dream sequence, and this is such an Aamir thing where Ayesha Jhulka is starting the dream sequence, and then Aamir just takes over the song, and it's like he's singing most of the song. But it was really nice the way it was shot, and I understand that this was Farah's kind of breakthrough song. It was so different from anything we'd seen before that I understand that she became kind of a unique voice in Hindi cinema. It's just lovely to see everybody have their little moment in the song, and even Mamek and his girlfriend, kind of that side plot of the other relationship that's going on.
The bread wali.
Yeah, bread wali, yeah. I also like in Sheher Ki Pariyon where there's this boys versus girl kind of thing, and Mamik is being all boyish and like dancing and stuff. It's like so awkward to look at. Yeah, good songs. Even the title track is really good, right?
It's all very, very catchy, man. It's all so good. I think, I remember a very old Lehre episode when this was in the 90s when I got to realize that this song was shot in slow motion and they had to make the lip sync match with the song, with the pace of the song even. So they sped up the song, made them lip sync to the, sped up twice or 1.5 times the pace of the song, and then when they slow it down, the lips match. Then it's all very, very, very creative. Kudos to Farah Khan to have created something so immortal in our memories.
Mike, I don't even think you know what Lehre was. This was kind of like we have these video features online now, but we used to get them on VHS. So so we used to watch all of them. So we used to have opening shots of movies, announcements, Silver Jubilee things, and interviews with cast and stuff. And we used to get these VHS cassettes that we used to get. So, but the cool part is they've now uploaded a lot of these old interviews on the YouTube, so people can actually go find them. So it's called Lehre Retro, I think. So if you ever want to go deep dive, and the cool part is because at that time nobody had any media training whatsoever. So a lot of times they just go they're super cash. They just say what's on their mind, and you're like, oh my god, Juhi Chawla is actually saying this. Aamir is actually, and it's quite bonkers to go back and watch those interviews. So I would actually recommend them, and most of them are in English, I think. So people can probably watch them.
I will check them out. I'll go have a look.
Any other thoughts on? I mean, I think Mike. I mean, even for you, you would recommend this movie, right? I mean, it's a good one, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I really enjoyed watching it. I'm very glad that the public have spoken and chosen this as film of the week. Like I say, it's another little gap in my education. Pre-Lagan Aamir, seeing Aamir before Aamir is quite something. But no, I mean, like I say, it's really charming, and it translated to me, and I think it was a very, very entertaining hour and a half. And like I say, it's not unpredictable, but in the same way that I think a lot of sort of 80s teen movies that I grew up on, and if you look at Pretty in Pink or The Breakfast Club or 16 Candles or something like that, it has that charm of those John Hughes films, in that it's done with such a sort of open heart that you can't. You'd be very cynical indeed if you turn your nose up at it. And no, I really enjoyed it. Thank you for sharing it with me.
No, I'm glad you. No, I think it is one of those movies you can. It really brings joy more than anything. It's just such a joyful movie. I really, really like it, and I was quite happy to revisit it myself. So, thank you, Sujoy, and thank you for the listeners that picked this out. Amrita, any final thoughts on Jo Jeeta?
I would say you should watch it again.
Yeah.
You're still not sold on Aamir, though?
Not in real life, no.
Oh, okay. All right. Movie Aamir, you're happy with?
Yeah, movie Aamir I'm happy to recommend, but Aamir in real life, I'm just no. But hey, I'll give him this. He has learned how to wear his pants better.
So many pleats in this movie.
It's not the pleats, it's also the fact that he used to wear it under his armpits for the entire 90s. I think until Lagan, he was consistently wearing his pants under his armpits because he thought it would make him look taller. But you heard me.
Keep going, Amrita. Keep going. I honestly feel the future of the world is not solar power or nuclear fission. It's figuring out how we can harness Amrita's rants about Aamir Khan into power.
It's just the pretension. I just can't stand it. At least Salman, Salman might say a few things that are self-aggrandizing, but he at the end of the day, he knows he's who he is. He's a big dumb guy who does dumb things. Yeah. But Aamir is I'm Jesus. I'm going to save you all. And I'm no, you're just going to bore us all to death.
Trousers out, Jesus.
No, Jesus, you're short. Yeah.
I just can't stand it.
She's still going?
Somebody stop me. I can't stop.
I know, right? I think I'll just keep quiet and let Amrita do her thing. Sujoy, man, any final thoughts on Jo Jeeta?
Vicky Kaushal is not in it, so go on.
There's no Gujarati jokes in Jo Jeeta. And there's no doggy style.
It has Devin Bhojani, but no Gujarati jokes.
Good. Okay. I think that's it for this episode. I think next episode we'll pick out a Shah Rukh movie. Let's do that. I've got the listeners' picks. I think we got the biggies. So we've got DDLJ, Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, which we haven't done yet. Main Hoon Na, Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, and Karan Arjun. So
fuck.
Okay. Shall we again do like a 3 and do the 3 early ones? So we'll do DDLJ, Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, and Karan Arjun.
Okay, let's do that. That's a good idea. Yeah. Because I also feel Kabhi Khushi should be on there somewhere. We should deal with that one too. So.
Oh no.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, well, which one would you like?
Karan Arjun, right?
Yeah.
I think
that one, Karan Arjun will be the better episode out of all of them. Or Main Hoon Na.
Main Hoon Na is not on it. It's DDLJ, Karan Arjun, and Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. Mike, have you seen Karan Arjun?
No, I haven't. No, so I'm intrigued to hear what your thoughts are.
But you have seen the other ones. Dilwale, I assume you've seen, right?
Yes, I've seen. Yes, I mainly know was the film that sort of introduced me to Shah Rukh Khan, which one I sort of sat, with my jaw agape, going, "Wow, this guy can do anything." He's very tiny, though.
Yeah.
We're back to that.
But at least he knows how to wear his trousers.
Yeah. How many armors is he?
He's actually taller than Aamir.
Okay.
So 2.5 armors.
Yeah. But all the Khans are like pretty tiny. It's just that they have like way bigger attitude.
Cool. Mike, man, where can people find you online?
So I am at Mike_McCahill on Twitter, and you can find me on the Guardian website. I'm on Facebook. Just come say hi. Try not to shout abuse. Say boy.
Anything you're working on now that you'll be dropping in the next week or something?
I'm working on a film quiz book at the moment for the magazine Little White Lies, which is based in London but goes worldwide. We're putting out a movie quiz book, the ultimate movie quiz book. So it has chapters on everything. There's a chapter on Indian cinema. There's a chapter on the films of Danny Dyer. There's a film on questions on anything, basically, and that will be hopefully coming out Christmas 2019. So it's a long way off, but we're finishing it up right now.
Can I ask you one thing though? Do you get feedback from, like, when you do a review of a Bollywood movie in The Guardian?
Yeah.
What is the feedback you kind of get? Like, and from
I get more feedback on those reviews than I do from reviewing anything else. And every time I get feedback, I just think more mainstream newspapers in the UK should be covering these films, because there's clearly an audience out there who want to read reviews of these films, and the mainstream media is not covering them in any kind of way. And so those reviews are the reviews that I get most feedback from online.
And is it from other Indian Pakistanis, or is it are you reaching the audience that The Guardian maybe wants to reach? Because the idea would be that non-Indians and Pakistanis would watch these movies, but I don't think we're there yet.
No, I don't think. I think there's a small number of people who are non-Asian who are watching these films. I think it's getting bigger, and I am no longer the only pale face when I go to see a public screening of big Indian movies. But it is getting bigger. I mean, one of the reasons The Guardian started running reviews of Bollywood cinema and Indian cinema in general is that they were expanding into India, and they wanted to reach both the audience there and the audience here back home. Like I say, those reviews are the ones I get the most feedback from, and by and large, touch wood, so far they're generally positive. Not people shouting at me for being an idiot, which I get on the street every other day of my life. So it's quite nice to have a break from that.
Yeah, but because that was another question, because we have a few other friends that are not Asian, but they review Bollywood movies, and they seem to get a lot of like hateful comments. So I'm glad to hear that's not the case for you.
No, I think that people have been really lovely and really welcoming, and I'm not here to take away anybody's place or to insist that my opinions are more valid than anyone. I'm just offering a starting point for a conversation. That's what every one of these reviews is, I think.
Right. Okay. Amrita, sorry I cut you off. You were maybe going to ask something.
Yeah, I was just saying that book sounds really interesting. So if you're still around in Christmas 2019, you should come back and we'll talk about it.
Thank you. I look forward to it. Fingers crossed the planet will still be here in 2019. Touch and go sometimes.
Yeah, it is touch and go. We don't know anything. And this is cool because I wanted Mike, I see Mike on, so we go to screenings together, and I've wanted to have him on for a long time. Since Mirzia, actually, I wanted to have you on because I think that would have been a good discussion back in the day. But, if we ever do a Harshvardhan Kapoor themed podcast, we can maybe bring you back for a Mirzia review.
I can't contain my laughter here.
I look forward to that day.
And so does Anil and Sonam Kapoor. Amrita, where can people find you online?
I'm on Twitter at AmritaIQ.
Great. Sujoy, can you tell where people can find you online, or is your stomach grumbling too much already?
I'll have to leave now, but I'm online on Twitter at @93K.
Great, and you've been listening to Khandaan Podcast. So we'll put the poll up. You can vote between DDLJ, that's Dilwale Dulhaniya Le Jayenge, Karan Arjun, which is kind of like 2 Khans for the price of 1. Awesome. Or Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, which is also kind of like an added scoop of Khan. So good choices, I think. We're looking forward to you guys will vote for. Send us an email at youpodcasting@gmail.com. And yeah, the hateful comments, you can always address them to me. That's fine. It's just dust off my shoulders. And also the loving ones. I have to say, the last podcast we did, we got so many positive comments, and people really had a good time with the race episode, and we really thought we might be annoying people with the jokes we were making, but it's really great feedback, and honestly this is what we live for. We don't make
Everybody
money.
seems to love Bobby's nipples.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really cool, just generally, if you enjoy content, let the people know that you enjoy the content, like even Mike's or Amrita's or whoever, it's cool, and I really appreciate it. So beside all sometimes the annoying comments we do get much more positive ones. So I just wanted to kind of say thank you for everybody. So yeah, that's it for this episode. Thank you for listening, guys.